Pretty safe to say that about 95% of the population loves or at least likes these fragrances. I don't see these being, daring or challenging. And I would say that for the most part, these are going to be blind buy safe. And so while yes, I've done plenty of videos on compliment pulling fragrances and things people like the smell of, these are going to be compliment pulling fragrances. But today I'm more so looking at the people actually in the market to purchase these, the wearers, you guys watching this video. These are likable. They're easygoing, they're safe. And if you're in the market for a new scent, and whether you're going to sample or blind buy or whatever, chances are you're going to end up liking these. I mean, they're just really hard not to, honestly. And in usual fashion, we have a bit of a variety pack. Some fresh, some sweet, so some more for spring and summer, some more for fall and winter. Predominantly fresh, just given the season that we're currently in, and a lot of you guys are in right now. So if you're in the market, these are going to be some great options to explore and discover, and chances are, you're not going to be disappointed. Let's get things kicked off with a fragrance line that probably will never let you down. And while they may not always be the most unique, the most exciting, the most challenging, again, that's not really what we're looking for here. They're just kind of reliable. They work. They do the job. Well, what is the job? They're wearable, they smell good, they got good performance, okay? From the YSL Y line, this one in particular is Y Eau de Parfum Intense. It just works, and that's what I love about it. And compared to the original Eau de Parfum, the original Eau de Toilette, the original Le Parfum in the black bottle, what's the difference? Well, this doesn't have the sweet apple, okay? So the Eau de Parfum and the Le Parfum original style has a very strong apple component, which gives it a sweetness. This still does have the amber wood, okay, which is used in all of those. It has more of a focus on sage and lavender and aromatic notes, essentially. So I find it to actually be fresher overall, and given that added level of freshness, I find it to be safer and a bit more wearable too. And truth be told, the Eau de Parfum could easily be in this video as well. I still think it's safe enough to fit this criteria, but when I'm picking favorites, at this point my favorite really is the Eau de Parfum Intense. I also really like the new Le Parfum 2025. Has kind of a pine smell to it, and it also follows a similar trend where it just doesn't have that level of sweetness. It's just a little bit of a different take, a bit more woody, a bit more earthy, and kind of green as well. So that's a great option too, and that one's finally hitting discounters now, and you can get it a bit below retail. But the Eau de Parfum Intense, it's right now usually around $90 to maybe $100 at discounters, which is a really reasonable price considering the retail is going to be quite a bit more. This next one is fantastic for high heat summer wear, and you just don't hear about this one a whole lot. You hear about the original and maybe one of the intense flankers quite a bit, but not so much this one. So much so that I had to go back and look and see if it was discontinued, because I don't really feature discontinued stuff, and so if it was, I wasn't going to put it in the video. Now I will say, maybe it's discontinued, but it's in stock, like for a good price on discounters, so I'm still featuring it. It is Prada L'Homme Low. So essentially this one is the fresh Prada L'Homme with that iris and the neroli and your kind of some of your citrus, but with more citrus. Can you believe that? And even just a little bit, a tiny bit of this slight watery smell. Not a ton, and it's not aquatic, at least by definition, but it does give off a little bit of that type of texture, I guess you could say. But oh, man, I love how this one smells. It's great. And honestly, while I would take Prada L'Homme Intense over Prada L'Homme, at this point I also might take Prada L'Homme Low over the regular Prada L'Homme too. I think I like them both better. I know for sure I like Prada L'Homme Intense better, but this one, especially after kind of revisiting it here after a while, I forgot how good it was. So like I said, officially I don't know if it's actually discontinued or not. I guess a quick search would have, answered that for me. I just didn't do that, but I did look on discounters, and again, it's in stock. It's a bit less than I think what you can get regular Prada L'Homme for, so it's very reasonable. You can see the main difference is the coloration of the bottle. You've got blue on the back, giving it kind of a more summery, light look to it, which is very conducive of the scent itself. Just more of a summery version of Prada L'Homme. To be fair, Prada L'Homme already could be a summer scent, but this one even more so. Lighter, brighter, fresher, and it's not overly weak either like you might expect. It actually can make it through most of the day. Not beast mode, but not weak as well. So kind of right there in the middle. It's a fantastic scent that I don't think anybody would dislike. All right, let's switch things up. These next two are going to be more fall winter leaning, and then after these we're back to more spring and summer. I just wanted to kind of throw in a little bit of everything because sometimes you might want something a bit sweeter for like a cold, cloudy spring or summer day or something, you know, whatever it is. Le Male Les Parfums is one that you cannot go wrong with. It's nowhere near as sweet as Ultra Male, which is something that I think some people definitely wouldn't like. I don't think, I know, because I remember when Ultra Male was first released and it was really getting popular and getting a ton of hype, there was a lot of people who didn't like it given the high level of sweetness coming from that pear note mixed with the vanilla and the tonka bean and some cinnamon. And I can definitely see where some people wouldn't like that, 100%. I've always been a fan, but I can see where people wouldn't. This one is nowhere near that sweet. Now, yes, it does have some vanilla. It does have some tonka bean. It does have some iris even, but it's more powdery. It's more dusty. It's nowhere near as cloyingly sweet or as sickeningly sweet as Ultra Male was. And so that's why I think this one can go a lot farther for a much wider variety of people, both the wearer and the people around the person wearing it. So that's what I like about this. You know, even Le Male Elixir, it's got the tobacco, it has some of that kind of sweetness as well, but almost a little bit more rich, just from the honey mixed with the tobacco, the tonka bean, things like that. And while it's a favorite of mine, maybe that one even pushes it for some people. I think this one strikes a better balance of just not being as in your face. And I definitely wouldn't say this one is fresh. You know, it is not, but it's fresher than Ultra Male and Le Male Elixir and things like that. It's a great release that I just think you really can't go wrong with it. It really doesn't even smell a ton like a Le Male scent. Now, yeah, it does have some of that pre-existing DNA, but it also drifts off in its own little category enough to where it does stand out and even has a bit of a maturity to it. Okay, that other winter scent we're going to talk about here, a little bit more expensive, but there are clones, is Parfums de Marly Althair. So this one, it's one of my favorites from Parfums de Marly. Now, Leighton, Carlisle, still really at the top of my list probably. Of course, then there's Harrod and Sedley, and I really like them all pretty much. But this one has quickly started to climb to the top, and it's newer, at least newer than those that I listed off. So, that's saying something. This one's got bourbon, vanilla, cinnamon, praline, cardamom. It is a beauty of a scent. This stuff is gorgeous, and it is sweet, okay? So this is where we're kind of getting further away from the trends that we've been talking about here and into something more sweet. However, I still think that it does have enough of a kind of a uniqueness to it to where it doesn't emulate something else. It's not really a clone or heavily inspired by anything else. And it also just has still some of that Parfums de Marly charm, which somehow one way or another, even though their stuff is priced high, they do connect with a lot of people. And I think this one still maintains some of that. So while it is sweet, still some wood, some sandalwood, and the dry down. Again, not fresh at all, but just does have at least a little bit of a counterbalance there. And this is one of those situations where if you don't like it, a lot of people around you probably would, because right now, sweet fragrances, they're in. That's what is so popular, and that's kind of what the trend is moving towards right now. And so people are used to smelling things like this on guys, and so that's just kind of where this one falls. If you don't want to spend this much, you could get Liquid Brun by Fragrance World. It's about $40 or so, and it's very close. All right, let's switch gears back into spring and summer with Narciso Rodriguez Bleu Noir. This is the Eau de Toilette Extreme. That frosted glass is super cool. It's a Really, really cool feature that I love on bottles. It's one of my favorite styles, really, is that frosted glass. In this case, it's more of a gradient, but you can still see it. That's pretty neat. So this one has, it has basically the same DNA that the others have, the woods and the musk. But in this case, you get a lot of citruses on top and also kind of a fun one, ice, you know? And so really what that does is it gives you an idea of what you're expecting to get out of this one, which is kind of a cooling, refreshing, citrusy, summery, musky scent. And that's what this one delivers on. The original and the Eau de Parfum, they don't really have a ton of that bright freshness. They're basically all about the musk and the woods, and that's it. And this one, on the other hand, it is lighter, it's fresher, it's more of a true summer scent, whereas the others are just kind of more so all year round, I guess. They're not really indicative of any one season in particular, where this one is, at least somewhat. Ultimately, I don't think this is something that you could really go wrong with or offend anybody with. You know, it's wearable. It has okay performance for what it is. It is somewhat unique too. Other than smelling like the other fragrances in the line, it really doesn't smell like anything else outside of that. And so that kind of brings something to the table too, because a lot of spring, summer oriented scents sometimes can start to smell similar. You know, they're kind of all grouped together in one way or another, depending on what you're looking at. You know, this one, not so much the case. Let's go for something cheap, usually around, I don't know, $30 to $35 maybe, something like that. Choo Man Ice. This one rose to fame as a Dior Homme cologne clone, and it checks out. The Dior Homme cologne been out for a long time and always been pretty popular just because it is so much of a fresh, light, simplistic summer scent. And I think when it comes to really high heat wear, simplicity is the best, because if you have a whole bunch of notes all together competing and stuff and it's really hot outside, that scent can start to get sweet and kind of muddled up pretty quick. Dior Homme cologne, that's never happened. The main issue with that one is even now, so many years later, it's still over $100 on discounters. And it's, I think a 4.2 ounce bottle is the standard. At least it was at one point. Maybe they've gone down to a 100 now. Can't remember, but you could get the, you know, something like that, either the 100 or the 4.2, or you could get the 200 ml, which usually is a better price per milliliter. But it's always been expensive, and the performance doesn't always line up to that price as well. You know, it kind of leaves some to be desired, which leaves a lot of people feeling like they don't really want to spend that much money on a bottle of Dior Homme cologne. That's where this one comes in. Again, $30 to $40 or so, $35, and it is very close. There's actually a little bit more depth behind this one though. So it's not quite as simplistic as Dior Homme cologne, but still very close. This one, you know, it does have some vetiver, some patchouli, kind of in the dry down, but still uses a ton of citrus and a ton of musk, and in this case, a ton of ambroxan too. It wouldn't surprise me if Dior Homme cologne is using some ambroxan in there, or some ambergris, quote unquote. They only list off 3 notes with that one, but you know, I would say definitely could be some aroma chemicals in there, some ambroxan or isoe super or something like that. But man, this stuff is an absolute beauty. So bright, so fresh, kind of sour and tart. And I don't know if you noticed that, but that atomizer is killer. And again, this stuff is so affordable, and that atomizer is great. Puts out a ton of liquid, which is kind of what you want in this case, because you're usually going to be spraying it on somewhat heavy anyway, given that it does take a little bit more to kind of get the desired results as far as performance is concerned. But at the price that this one's at, really can't complain about that all that much. All right, we're going to finish this video off with a newer release. It was new last year, kind of towards the end of last year. It's Eros Energy, and again, summer oriented here, as you could easily tell just by the bottle alone. Of course, the name gives it away, and then the note breakdown seals the deal. The only thing you got to do after that is smell it, which at that point you could pretty much guarantee that it's going to be summer based. And if you got all the way to that point and you smelled it and it smelled like a winter scent, that would definitely be misleading on their part. And of course, yes, it is summer. And what this one really does focus on, and it surprised me so much when I tried it for the first time, was such a sour bergamot grapefruit combination, and lemon mostly. It's a sour lemon opening. and it's insane, you know. Yes, some fragrances have kind of that lemon accord for sure. Quite a few of them do. But the sour citric potency of this one in particular off the opening, I was not expecting that at all. And it definitely kind of wakes you up. You know, it's punchy, it's bright, and it gets your attention. And this would be a great scent to start the day. You know, it's like jumping into a cold shower or something. It gets you going. Now, obviously, after that opening and it starts to dry down, that sour punchiness does dissipate. You still do pick up on some of the lemon and the other citrus, but just that initial blast does settle down. But man, that opening is probably one of my favorite parts about this stuff. The other thing that you'll notice after smelling it for a while is some similarities. You kind of start thinking, you know, this reminds me of something. Can it be true? There's no way there is another clone of this fragrance. And well, it kind of is true, yes. It does smell quite a bit like Creed Aventus. So there you go. Some people are lost, you know, now they're going to be like, I'm done. I don't want another Creed Aventus clone. And to be fair, while it does have a lot of similarities, more so to Mont Blanc Explorer, in my opinion, than Creed Aventus, with that citrus opening, it still is different too. So don't get hung up on that too much unless you really just want something that doesn't smell like it at all. But for me, you know, I do like it just because of the differences that it does have. Because of course I have Aventus. I have basically almost all of the clones on the market. So, you know, I wouldn't need this if it wasn't different, and I wouldn't like it as much if it wasn't different, and it is different too. So something to keep in mind. Also, price is coming down, you know, $80 or so for 100 ml, $100 for a 200 ml. So let that sink in. You toss in an extra 20 bucks and you could double the amount that you get. That's kind of a good deal to me, especially if you're going to be wearing it heavily all the time in the summertime. You could burn through a 100 pretty quick, and having that extra, you know, doubling the size for a $20 bill, to me, it kind of makes sense. Alrighty guys, that's going to do it for me. Pretty safe to say that about 95% of the population would at least like, if not really enjoy these fragrances. I think they're a great place to start for all parties involved. I will link everything down below, make it super easy for you to purchase. Also, I haven't said this in a while, but I've got a mailing list. Do you remember that? Okay, I still update there. In fact, the past couple days, I sent out a couple that had some really solid discontinued fragrances. YSL YO Fresh. I've had Light Blue Stromboli, Gucci Guilty Cologne, and some other rare things, as well as just some really good deals on some not so rare fragrances, but kind of hard, you know, kind of hyped up ones like Boss Wild Absolute and L'Homme Ideal Parfum and such. So if you hit the link down below, sign up to my mailing list. It's completely free to do so, and we do send out emails on the best deals and rare finds and stuff like that. 100% free. You can unsubscribe at any time, but it's a great service if you want to get some things in your collection and ultimately save some money. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy. Have a great Memorial Day weekend, and we'll see you tomorrow with another one. Take care.